Good morning, students. In the last class, we have discussed about various biotic components of ecosystem and how the biotic components are organized in the ecosystem in the form of producers, consumers, parasites, and decomposers. Let us discuss food chain, trophic levels, and flow of energy among the trophic levels in the food chain in today's class. What is food chain? Food chain is the series of organisms that feed on one another at various biotic levels in an ecosystem, and each step or level of the food chain is known as trophic level. How many trophic levels are there in a food chain? Generally, a food chain has 4 trophic levels: first, second, third, and fourth trophic levels. If we discuss what are these 4 levels in the food chain. Autotrophs are producers. They are at first trophic levels. Autotrophs are producers are at first trophic level. And what do they do? Autotrophs fix up the solar energy and make it available for heterotrophs. And heterotrophs are the broad spectrum consumers in the ecosystem. In the heterotrophs, there are of 3 types: herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. Here we are going to discuss about herbivores and carnivores. Of course, omnivores are placed among them itself. Right. Herbivores are primary consumers. They are placed at second trophic level. Next, small carnivores are secondary consumers, and omnivores, they are at third trophic level. And larger carnivores are at fourth trophic level, and these larger carnivores only are referred as tertiary consumers. Primary consumers are herbivores, secondary consumers are smaller carnivores and omnivores, and tertiary consumers are larger carnivores. Producers are at first trophic level. Primary consumers are at second trophic level. Secondary consumers are at third trophic level. And tertiary consumers are at fourth trophic level. Which animals are primary consumers? Herbivores. Which animals are secondary consumers? Smaller carnivores and omnivores. Which animals are tertiary consumers? Larger carnivores. Okay, so producers are at first trophic level. Herbivores are at second trophic level. Smaller carnivores and omnivores are third trophic level, and larger carnivores are at a fourth trophic level. As we have already discussed, continuous interactions are taking place among various components of an ecosystem. So, interactions among various components of the ecosystem, they involve the flow of energy from one component of the ecosystem to another. We have already discussed that there are continuous interactions among the components of ecosystem. These interactions among various components of the ecosystem, they involve the flow of energy from one component of the ecosystem to another component of the ecosystem. Right. So we discussed various trophic levels just now. What is the first trophic level of organisms? Autotrophs. The autotrophs capture the solar energy from sunlight, and convert it into chemical energy, that is into glucose. So the energy from sunlight is converted into chemical form of energy into glucose. This solar energy, which has got converted into chemical energy, supports all of the activities of the living world. And energy always is flowing from autotrophs to heterotrophs, and from heterotrophs finally to decomposers. As this energy flows down, one form of energy is changed into another form, and during this process, what will happen? Energy is flowing down from where to where? From sunlight to autotroph, and from autotrophs to heterotrophs. During this process, what is happening? Energy is changed into one form to another form. Energy is changed from one form into another form. When one form of energy is changed to another form of energy, some energy is lost to the environment in such type of form which cannot be utilized again. So the lost energy to the environment cannot be utilized again. Let us just discuss how the flow of energy takes place. Green plants capture only 1% of the fallen solar energy, and this solar energy is converted into food energy. A lot of solar energy is falling on the green plants. Assume that 100 units of solar energy is fallen on the green plants. Green plants can capture only 1% of it. Are you getting it? If 100 units is falling on green plants, only 1%, only 1 unit can be captured by the green plants. And this 1% of the captured solar energy is converted into food energy. That is chemical form of energy, right? And these green plants are eaten by the herbivores, that is primary consumers. 10% of the eaten food energy by the consumers is utilized for the construction of their bodies. So, green plants are eaten by the herbivores. They contain a lot of energy in the form of glucose, out of the entire eaten food energy, only 10% of energy is utilized for the construction of their bodies by the herbivores. Remaining 90% of the energy is lost to the environment in the form of heat. So, only 10% of the eaten food energy is made available for the next level of consumers. Since solar energy is converted into chemical energy, organic matter present in the organisms can be considered as the form of energy that is available with the organisms. We have discussed that the energy from sunlight is captured by the green plants, which is converted into the form of chemical energy. And organic matter, it itself represents that chemical form of energy. So organic matter present in the organisms can be considered as the form of energy. As only 10% of eaten food energy in the form of as only 10% of eaten food energy in the organic form is made available from one level to the next level, 10% can be taken as the average value for the amount of organic matter that is available at each trophic level. 10% can be taken as the average value for the amount of organic matter that is available at each trophic level, which is transferred to the next trophic level consumers. So, from every trophic level to the next trophic level consumers, how much of energy is transferred in the form of organic matter? Only 10%. This is what called 10% law of energy transfer in the ecosystem. What does this law explains? The 10% law of energy transfer explains that only 10% of energy is made available from one trophic level to the next trophic level in a given food chain. Remaining 90% of the energy is lost in the form of heat to the environment. This is called 10% law of energy transfer. So, every time only 10% of energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level is getting transferred in the food chain. So, great amount of energy is lost. Am I correct? And only little energy is made available to the next trophic level. So, as the trophic levels rise, very little energy is available for the next level of consumers, because the loss of energy at each step is so great. 90% of energy is lost. So very little usable energy remains after 4 trophic levels. Every time, see, only 1% of the fallen sun solar energy is captured, out of which only 10% is transferred to the herbivores. From this 10%, only again 10%, that is 1. From this 1 again 10%, 0.1. From this 0.1 again 10%, 0.01%. So very little amount of energy is left. Very little amount of solar energy that is captured by the green plants is left after 4 trophic levels. So from this also 10% has to be transferred to the next trophic level. Maybe organisms cannot survive. Because of this reason only, in a given food chain, maximum of 3 to 4 trophic levels are existing, because the energy that is reaching to the final trophic level is very, very less or very, very little. Because of this reason only a maximum of 3 to 4 food or trophic levels are present in a given food chain. So food chains generally consists of only 3 or 4 steps or 4 trophic levels, right? Thank you.